They called their older sibling because something about you had become impossible to keep contained. The strange part is, the sibling knew before your name ever came up. There was a pause on the line, not awkward, just suspended. Like this person had reached the edge of what they could explain logically and suddenly had no language left. That is why the first card showing up matters. The hanged cat, not as fortune-telling, as symbolism. Look at the image. Everything is upside down. The cat is suspended, caught between movement and surrender, forced to see the world from an angle it would never choose. That is exactly what this connection has done to them. This is somebody who normally solves things by moving. If something feels uncertain, they decide. If something feels dangerous, they create distance. If emotions get too loud, they get busy enough not to hear them. But you have put them in a position where none of their usual exits work. So the sibling hears this silence and says, "Okay, who has you this stuck?" And this person laughs. One short, nervous laugh. Because stuck is the word. They say, "I don't even know if stuck is right. It feels like I'm seeing everything differently now, and I don't know how to go back." The sibling goes quiet, because they have heard this person complain before. They have heard anger, disappointment, stress, even heartbreak. But this is different. This person does not sound hurt, they sound rearranged. And when the sibling asks, "Is this about someone?" there is another pause. Then your name. Not loudly. Almost reluctantly. Like saying it aloud gives the feeling weight. The moment your name enters the conversation, everything changes, because the hanged cat is not about chasing, it is about the terrifying moment when control stops working. This person has been trying to understand you from their normal angle, and they cannot. They cannot reduce you to attraction, they cannot file you under just a crush. They cannot talk themselves out of the way their perspective shifts after one conversation with you. Their sibling hears it immediately, but what the sibling asks next is what exposes how hard this person has fallen. Because they do not ask, "Do you like them?" They ask something more dangerous. And the answer is the reason their sibling eventually says, "Don't let them go." The question is, if they chose somebody else tomorrow, could you actually live with knowing you never told them? And this person goes silent, not thoughtful silence, caught silence. The kind where the body answers before the mouth does. Their sibling waits, then this person tries to laugh it off. They say, "That's dramatic." And the sibling says, "You didn't answer me." Another pause, because suddenly this is not about whether they can handle rejection. It is about whether they can handle regret. Those are two very different fears, and that is where Temperance comes in, not as a prediction, as a mirror. Look at the card. Everything about it is balance. Two sides being held in the same moment. Emotion without losing yourself inside it. Restraint without pretending you feel nothing. And that is exactly where this person has been struggling with you. They have been trying to find some perfect middle ground where they can care deeply without ever becoming vulnerable, where they can stay close enough to feel you, but far enough away that losing you cannot destroy their sense of control. Except their sibling can already hear that the balance is gone, because this person starts talking. And suddenly, they are mentioning little things. The way you say something when you are tired. A phrase you used weeks ago that apparently never left their head. The fact that they can tell when your energy shifts, even when you insist, you are fine. They mention something you like, something you avoid. Something you once said almost casually, and the sibling catches it. Wait, this person stops. Their sibling says, "You remember all of that?" And there it is again, that nervous laugh. Because they did not realize how much they had been revealing. They did not realize that while they were trying to sound confused about you, they were describing someone they had been paying extraordinary attention to. Then the sibling asks, "So what are you actually scared of?" That they'll say, "No." This person takes a breath. "No." Quiet. Then, "I think I'm scared I'll wait too long." That changes the conversation, because rejection means you tried. Being too late means you had the chance and watched it disappear because you kept convincing yourself there would be more time. Their sibling understands immediately. This person is not only imagining you now, they are imagining future versions of their life and noticing where you might be missing from them, and that scares them more than admitting the feeling ever could. So the sibling asks one last question, slowly this time. Okay, then tell me something. A pause. When did you first realise they weren't like everybody else? This person does not answer immediately, because there was not one dramatic moment, no lightning strike, no instant realisation. It was smaller than that. They say, I think it was when I stopped expecting them to understand me, and they did, anyway. Their sibling waits. So they explain. There was a conversation where this person had gone guarded, not rude, just careful. They gave you the shortened version of what they were feeling, the version designed to close the subject before anybody could get too close, and you did something they were not expecting. You did not push. You did not chase the answer. You did not make their silence about you. You just understood what they were not saying, and then you gave them room. That stayed with them. Longer than it should have, and that is why the Ten of Wands showing up reversed makes sense here. Again, not as fortune-telling, as symbolism. Look at the image, the weight is there, but everything is turned upside down, like something this person has been carrying the same way for years, suddenly cannot be carried that way anymore. Because this person is used to handling themselves alone. They know how to say, I'm fine. They know how to disappear into responsibility. They know how to make being self-contained look like strength. Then you noticed, without demanding access, and somehow that felt safer than being chased, but also more dangerous. Because once somebody sees behind the wall without trying to tear it down, the wall stops feeling quite as useful. Their sibling says, so that's when you knew. This person hesitates. No. I think that's when it started bothering me. Bothering you? Another nervous laugh, because after that they started going back to conversations, rereading things, almost sending you something because they knew you would understand it. Then stopping themselves. They would talk to someone else and notice the conversation felt different, flatter somehow. And when you became quiet, they noticed that too, more than they wanted to. A message from you could shift their mood. No message from you could do the same thing. Their sibling hears all of this and finally says, you know you're not describing attraction anymore, right? Silence. Because they know. This is why being too late scares them. The attachment already happened. Quietly, before they gave themselves permission to call it that. And then the sibling catches something else. Something this person keeps doing without realizing it. They keep talking about you in future tense. What you would think, where you might be, what it would be like if you were still around months from now. The sibling lets them finish. Then asks, so if you feel all of this, a pause, what have you actually done about it? And this time the answer comes painfully fast. Almost nothing. Their sibling does not even try to hide the reaction. Almost nothing? This person sighs. Because saying it out loud makes it sound worse. They have felt all of this, noticed all of this, thought about you this much, and somehow, from where you are standing, you may have seen almost none of it. That is where the magician reversed becomes important. Not as fortune-telling, as symbolism. Look at the image. The ability is there, the tools are there. But everything is inverted, potential without movement, intention without expression, and that is exactly what this person has been doing. They think about reaching out, then wait. They type something honest, then make it lighter. They have an interaction with you that affects them for hours, and the next time you see them, they act normal, almost too normal. Their sibling knows this pattern, so they say, you're doing that thing again. This person immediately knows what they mean. What thing? The thing where you wait until you know exactly how something is going to end before you let yourself start it. Silence. Because that is the problem. This person has been waiting for certainty from you before giving you anything certain from them. They want reassurance before vulnerability, proof before risk, an answer before they ask the question, and in their mind, that feels responsible, controlled, safe. They tell their sibling, I just don't want to mess it up, and the sibling says, what if this is how you mess it up? That lands. Because from your side, restraint may not look like restraint. It may look like indifference. That message they wanted to send but waited 3 days to send. You did not see the waiting, you only saw the silence. That moment they wanted to tell you what you meant to them, but changed the subject. You did not hear the confession they swallowed. You heard the subject change, and every time they sensed you pulling back, they did something even stranger. They pulled back too, not because they wanted less, because wanting more made them nervous. Their sibling finally says, "You know they can't respond to feelings you never show them, right?" This person gets quiet, and something becomes obvious. Somewhere underneath all this waiting was an assumption that you would still be there, that they had time, that they could figure themselves out while the connection stayed exactly where they left it. But people do not stay suspended forever. The sibling hears the silence change, then asks, "Wait," a pause. "Has something been different with them lately?" This person does not answer. They do not need to, because this silence says yes. Eventually they say, "Yeah, just that," and their sibling waits, because they know there is more. This person says, "They're not doing anything wrong, it's just different." Different how? They take longer to explain this. Because the changes are small. You may answer, but you do not keep the conversation alive the way you used to. You may still be warm, but there is less reaching, less filling in the silence, less making it easy for them to stay half present and still feel close to you. And this person noticed. Every bit of it. They noticed when you stopped explaining yourself as much. They noticed when your attention seemed to return to your own life. They noticed when they left space between you, and you stopped rushing to close it. That is why the Emperor matters here. Not as fortune-telling, as symbolism. Look at the image. Still, controlled, holding the position. Everything about it says structure, authority, the need to stay composed. And that is exactly how this person has been trying to handle what they feel for you. By managing it, containing it, keeping themselves in the position where they never have to admit how much your response matters. But something changed, because control feels very different when the other person stops participating in it. Their sibling says, "So you noticed all of that?" Immediately. Yes, too fast. And the sibling almost laughs, not because it is funny, because this person has spent the entire conversation claiming they do not know what is happening with you. While tracking changes most people would never even register. Then the sibling says something quieter. Maybe they're tired. That bothers this person. You can hear it in the way they answer. Tired of what? And the sibling says, waiting for you to decide whether you're going to show up. Silence. Because maybe your distance is not punishment. Maybe it is not a strategy. Maybe you simply reached a point where protecting your own peace started mattering more than constantly leaving the door open, and that possibility scares them. Because longing was manageable when they believed they had time. They could miss you and still tell themselves, later. Eventually, when I'm sure. But now they are starting to imagine your life moving without them, your attention finding somewhere else to land, your heart becoming comfortable without their presence. Their sibling hears the fear underneath all of it, then asks, "Are you scared of telling them how you feel?" A pause. Or are you scared they might not need you anymore? This person goes completely quiet, and when they finally answer, their voice changes. "I think I'm scared somebody else is going to figure out what I figured out." Another pause. And actually do something about it. Their sibling does not respond the way this person expects. They do not say, "Then go get them." They do not turn you into something that can be won. Instead, they ask, "What exactly are you imagining?" This person gets quiet again. Because the answer is uncomfortable. It is not really about somebody else touching you. It is not even about somebody else getting your attention. It is smaller than that, and somehow worse. They imagine somebody answering you when you reach out. Not waiting because they are scared of seeming too interested, not pretending they missed the message, just answering. They imagine somebody remembering the thing you mentioned once, and actually following through on it. Someone making plans with you without leaving everything vague. Someone saying, "I want you here," and meaning it. Their sibling hears the shift immediately, because this is not jealousy in the way people usually mean jealousy. This is regret wearing jealousy's clothes, and that is where the King of Pentacles reverse becomes interesting. Not as fortune-telling, as symbolism. Look at the image. There is something that should represent security, stability, something solid enough to rely on, but it is upside down. And that is the contradiction this person is finally confronting. They wanted to become certain before they offered you certainty. They wanted to feel completely safe before making you feel safe with them. And now they are terrified somebody else might simply do what they kept postponing. Their sibling says, "So you're not scared somebody's going to steal them?" This person says nothing. You're scared somebody else is going to show up properly. That lands harder. Because yes, that is closer. Someone else could notice what this person noticed, and not spend months arguing with themselves about it. Someone else could see your value and respond to it, clearly, consistently, without making you wonder. And the painful part? This person knows they would not have anyone to blame. Not you, not the other person. Because wanting you privately does not create an obligation for you to wait publicly. Their sibling lets that sit for a moment. Then says, there's a difference between not wanting to lose somebody and actually being ready to love them well. Silence. Because fear can make someone hold tighter. But love has to make them show up differently. And now the sibling needs to know which one this is. So they ask something this person cannot answer with jealousy, cannot answer with loneliness, cannot answer with what you give them. They say, forget how they make you feel for a second. A pause. What do you actually love about who they are? This person takes longer with that question. Because attraction is easy to describe. You can point to chemistry, a look, a feeling. But this requires them to explain what they have actually been noticing about you. They finally say, they don't make people pay for what somebody else did to them. Their sibling goes quiet, so this person keeps going. They have seen you disappointed. They have seen you frustrated. They have watched you realize that somebody was not meeting you where you were, and somehow you did not become cruel about it. You might get quieter. You might pull your energy back. But you do not seem interested in punishing people just because they hurt you. That stayed with them. Then they mention something else. The way you notice people, small things, when someone is uncomfortable, when somebody gets left out of a conversation, when the mood changes and everyone else keeps talking like nothing happened, you catch it. And apparently this person catches you catching it. Their sibling says nothing now. Because this is different from the way this person normally describes somebody they are interested in. Usually, it is about attraction, compatibility, whether things are easy. With you, they are describing character, and that is where the Nine of Swords reversed fits. Not as fortune-telling, as symbolism. Look at the image. Everything is inverted. The fear that normally lives inside the mind is being forced out into the open, and that is what this phone call is doing. This person has spent so much time worrying about what you might think that they almost missed how clearly they already see you. They say, they have this way of knowing when to stop trying. Their sibling catches that one. What do you mean? This person hesitates. They care, but they're not going to beg somebody to care back. There it is. The quality they admire most is also the one frightening them now. Your self-respect. Your ability to love something without abandoning yourself for it. Because if you can recognize when something is not being returned, you can leave. Not dramatically, not to teach anyone a lesson. You can simply stop reaching. And worse, this person suspects you may already understand them better than they hoped. You may already know the silence was fear. You may already know the distance was control. And knowing why someone holds back does not mean you have to wait for them forever. Their sibling is very quiet now. Then they say, you know what you sound like, right? This person does not answer, because maybe they do. Maybe they are just not ready to use the word, so their sibling gives them one last place to hide, and then removes it. If they walked away tomorrow? A pause. What would you regret not saying? This time, the silence lasts, long enough that their sibling stops waiting for a clean answer, because there is not one. Finally, this person says, I'd regret them thinking they didn't matter. Then they stop, correct themselves. No, that's not. Another pause. I'd regret them thinking they mattered less than they did. Their sibling says nothing, so the rest starts coming out, unevenly. They say they would regret never telling you that something changed after meeting you. Not their whole life, not in some dramatic way, just the way they picture certain things now. They get good news, and sometimes their mind goes, I should tell them. Something ridiculous happens during the day, and they remember it because they know exactly how you would react. They have saved things, a song, a joke, something they saw that would make sense to you immediately. And there are moments they catch themselves making plans in their head, then realizing you are somehow already inside them. Not because you were invited there, because somewhere along the way, imagining you around became natural. That is why the Two of Cups reversed matters here. Not as fortune-telling, as symbolism. Look at the image, two figures connected, but upside down, the connection exists, the recognition exists. And yet something about the way it is being held is out of alignment. That is what this person is finally admitting. Inside, you have become important. Outside, they have given you ambiguity. Inside, they wonder what you would think. Outside, they act like nothing touches them. Inside, they have imagined calling you after something important happens. Outside, they have made you guess whether they even want the conversation. And hearing that contradiction out loud hurts. They say, I think they made me realize I don't actually want to do everything alone. That one surprises even them. Because independence used to feel like protection. Now some of it feels like isolation with better branding, and you made ordinary closeness feel possible. Not constant intensity, not some perfect fantasy, just being able to turn towards someone, to let them know, to be known back. Their sibling has not interrupted once. But when this person finally goes quiet, they say, You understand what you're telling me, right? No answer. You already make room for them in your life when they're not even there. Silence. And somehow you've given them less certainty than you've given yourself. That lands. Hard. Because there is nothing left to argue with. The sibling's voice changes then. Firmer. Not angry. Just done watching this person hide behind confusion. Another pause. Then what are you doing? Their sibling finishes the sentence. Then what are you doing waiting? This person does not answer, and for the first time their sibling does not let the silence rescue them. They say, Listen to me. A pause. Don't let them go. And this person goes completely still, because those words sound bigger than they actually mean. The sibling is not telling them to chase you, not telling them to convince you, not telling them that wanting you gives them some claim over what you choose. They mean something much simpler. Do not lose someone important because you were too afraid to be understood. Do not make them carry every risk while you stay protected. Do not expect them to translate silence forever, and do not call fear being careful just because it sounds better. That is where the Four of Pentacles matters. Not as fortune-telling, as symbolism. Look at the image. Everything is being held. Tightly. Protected. Kept close enough that nothing can take it away. And that is exactly what this person has been trying to do with their feelings. Hold them privately. Control the exposure. Keep something valuable without risking what happens when they open their hands. But there is a problem with holding something that tightly. Eventually, you stop reaching outward at all. Their sibling says, You don't have to know what they'll say. This person exhales. That's kind of the problem. No, that's the point. Silence, because honesty is not a strategy for controlling your answer. It cannot guarantee that you stay. It cannot erase whatever their hesitation already made you feel. It can only finally give you something real to respond to. Their sibling tells them to stop trying to find the perfect moment. Say what is true. Acknowledge where they held back. Let their actions stop contradicting what they claim to feel. And then, let you choose. That part scares them. But there is relief inside the fear now, because the decision has changed. They are no longer trying to figure out whether they care enough. They already answered that. Repeatedly, without meaning to. The question now is whether they are willing to behave like it. The hanged cat began with suspension, being forced to see everything differently. This is what comes after that. Not certainty. Movement. When the call finally ends, this person sits there for a while. Phone still in their hand, they open your conversation. They stare at the last thing between you. And normally? This is where they would think themselves out of doing anything. Type, delete, wait, tell themselves tomorrow. But this time, something is different. They start typing again, and they do not delete it. That does not mean they suddenly know exactly what to say. They do not. It does not mean the fear disappears. It is still there, but now the fear has competition. Regret. Because after saying all of this to their sibling, pretending you are casual would require them to lie to themselves in a way they cannot quite manage anymore, and that is where the Ace of Pentacles reversed makes sense. Not as fortune-telling, as symbolism. Look at the image. There is something being offered, something that could become real, but it is upside down, ungrounded, potential that has not been given anywhere to land. And that has been this connection from their side. So much internal meaning, so little external proof. They may have imagined the conversation, rehearsed the honesty, thought about being more consistent, thought about apologising for the distance, thought about finally telling you what all that hesitation was actually hiding. But thinking about showing up is not the same as showing up. Their sibling made that impossible to ignore. So whatever happens next, something inside this person has shifted. Maybe movement looks like a more honest message. Maybe it is a conversation they have been avoiding. Maybe it is simply the first time they stop making you guess. But none of that guarantees your answer. And that matters. Because you are not required to wait, just because somebody finally understands how deeply they feel. You are not required to accept half effort because the feelings behind it are intense. Private love does not automatically become a healthy relationship. Private realization does not erase public inconsistency. If this person truly sees you the way they told their sibling they do, then eventually their behaviour has to carry some of that weight. That is the difference now. The hanged cat showed suspension. A person forced to stop moving long enough to see from another angle. But suspension was never supposed to become a permanent home. The point of seeing differently is that eventually you choose differently. And this person knows that now. Maybe that is why their older siblings sensed the truth before your name was ever spoken. It was in the pauses, the nervous laugh, the strange amount of detail, the fear underneath every attempt to sound reasonable. They called because they thought they needed help figuring out what to do about you. But somewhere in that conversation, the real question changed. It stopped being, what if I tell them and lose them, and became, what if I say nothing, and that is exactly how I lose them. That is what they are sitting with now. Not certainty, not a guaranteed ending. Just the truth they can no longer put back where it was. They were never only afraid of loving you. They were afraid of finally admitting that fear might cost them you.